This past weekend, I did nothing, which is not impressive enough for a YouTube video. And why am I telling you this? It somehow, when I did nothing all weekend, helped me stop stressing about the thing I've been stressing about for months, if not years. You may have heard of the book Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins, or just David Goggins, the motivational speaker himself from all of his YouTube videos. One of his advice that I took maybe slightly too literally was fill up every single second of my time. So I'd schedule my workouts, my career development, my reading, working on YouTube, my chores, and my bedtime. All that made sense according to David Goggins' advice. I have a lot of things I want to do: advance my career, make more money, get faster at running, and doing this 90-day YouTube challenge. Why would I waste any free time that I have? I do audiobooks to fill in any free time. On my reading list, I had The Explorer Gene by Alex Hutchinson and The Comfort Crisis by Michael Easter. And this was the most perfect timing for these books. For the past 3 or 4 years, I did crazy research on how to make my life better. All the books on productivity, career, YouTube, intrinsic motivation, all the popular ones I read. Really took to heart Daniel Pink's Drive, which is the internal motivation, self-determination theory. I have all the self-development necessary up to date with the current science. At this point, I actually need to do things. These 2 books that I just read, Comfort Crisis and Explorer's Gene, made me notice something that I accidentally removed from my life due to David Goggins, my unstructured time. What popular culture now is calling boredom or being unstimulated, and the old-timey phrase of mess around and find out. I don't use profanity. So this weekend, I did the opposite of what I've been doing for the last several years. Besides my workouts, I left basically the entire weekend open. My responsibilities were roughly the TV show Jersey Shore, which was gym tan laundry, except that I didn't need tanning. I work outside in the Florida sun. And almost immediately, I got that feeling of uneasiness, which is any withdrawal symptom. If you're an addict, I'm sorry if you are, but that's going to be a feeling. And that's what I was actually aiming to do, was that uncomfortable, you're removing something from your life, which is all this stimuli and structure. I was curious what would happen, and my first thought was, am I on top of everything? So you're addict of being structured, go, go, go. So I'm like, am I on? Yes. Do the thing? Did I do everything? I went to my to-do lists, and I had a pretty good pacing now. I've been pretty good at it the last month-ish to not overwork myself. I set myself up for a pretty good weekend of nothing. I made sure I was on top of my email. I paced out these YouTube videos for the 9 videos in 90 days to a good pace, and I got everything I needed to get done. If you watched Wayne's World, there's a phrase that I'm paraphrasing at this point, which is, you come home immediately on a Friday to get all your homework done, so your Saturdays are just free to party. And that's what I was going after here. But the thing was, once I got to the weekend, I didn't know what to do with myself. I had a hard time remembering what that feeling was, so I had to go back to earlier in my life when I had that free time, which was what I would be doing. A lot of people experience when they have this free time is when you have 30 seconds of standing in the grocery store line or just walking around. What do? You pull out your phone, you put in some headphones, listen to a podcast, put on Netflix, put on YouTube, and I made sure I didn't do any of that. Now at this point in society in 2026, that's considered being socially weird. About a week or 2 ago, I started easing myself into this. So I had a meeting scheduled with a personal trainer at my gym. And what I did was I just waited at the table for him, didn't bring out my phone. He ended up being just a few minutes late. And when he came in, he immediately apologized, thinking that I was angry at him because I was just sitting there waiting. I wasn't. I was just kind of sitting there. Once I got through that uncomfortable feeling this past weekend, I had something else happen. My brain just kind of started wandering around, and eventually was thinking about my goal of qualifying for the Boston Marathon. It's one of those big goals that you try to go after. And I've ran marathons before. Qualifying for Boston is generally something I would internally want to do just myself, just to get that accomplishment. And for whatever reason, sitting around doing nothing made me finally ask myself, is this the actual right goal for me right now? Naturally, I go to ChatGPT, which has basically become my AI therapist at this point, which is a whole nother video I may be making another day. And I started talking through it. In conclusion, qualifying for the Boston Marathon is a good goal. It's not too ambitious for me, but it's better off to be delayed for another time and slowly chunk it into smaller goals. So keeping my main goal, getting a actual full-time career, either being YouTube or adult big boy day job, whatever you want to call that. So creatively, I've been consuming so much information instead of making things, which is why I'm doing this 9 videos in 90 days YouTube project. Organizing my whole life around trying to qualify for the Boston Marathon right now, not the greatest idea. Instead, maybe just a faster 5K and then go to the faster 10K and so on from there. Boston's great. Just keep it out long term, but focus on shorter term goals. This will give me more energy to focus on things that matter now. The thing that really stuck with me was how I arrived at that decision. I didn't schedule 30 minutes on a Saturday of reevaluate everything in your life. I wasn't trying to solve any problem. That's just where my brain went. That's part of the unstructured time that I've been missing. There are these useful things that you can't intentionally search for on Google or on AI chatbots. Sometimes you don't know what you're looking for. That idea shows up a lot in the Explorer Gene book. Exploration gives you a chance to discover unknown unknowns. These are things you didn't know that you didn't know. A few months ago, for example, I was trying to find some type of third space. I live in Orlando near the theme parks, which sounds like a great problem to have. At this point, I've lived here so long, I've done every ride at least a dozen times, and there's only so many times you can listen to It's a Small World before you start questioning your life decisions. For most people, that's just one time. I started becoming interested in commercial gyms. I had a little bit of free time. I would check out the different chains, do the researches on that, look at the different locations, the different equipment that they had. I didn't really have a big plan. I was just kind of messing around and looking at the gyms and trying them out. The thing I realized is I kind of like being there. It's nice. The gym had become a third space of sort, not a amazing third space. I don't really strike up conversation with anybody there. Just gets me out of the house. I didn't know I was looking for that until I found it. That's part of just exploring. You just follow something you're interested in before you know whether it's useful. That's what I think post-college or young adulthood really beats that out of us. There's just so much pressure to justify your time, what you're doing, what are you working towards, what are you trying to improve, what's your return on investment for this. Just even hobbies, you turn into projects and you hear a lot of, hey, how do I make money off this hobby? And you'll probably seen a few videos of try not to monetize every single hobby. This is what Alyssa Liu's story got interesting for me when she won gold in figure skating. You see all these interviews of she stepped away from figure skating for 2 to 3 years to just dilly-dally, to explore, be a college student, an everyday average college student. And then she came back. This is where your logical brain wants every step of someone's life to lead somewhere in a perfectly straight line of a career path. But while you're actually living it, you have no idea what you're going to bump into next. Sometimes you just have to try it. You meet someone, read a book outside your normal genre, you talk to your manager, you talk to somebody at a convention that you go to, and most of it probably doesn't go anywhere, but occasionally you find that something that you couldn't have found by staying on that linear path that you already know. And that's one of these reasons that I'm making these videos, that my day job doesn't really give me time to be creative. I clock in, I do the job, I clock out. On a normal work day, I might have 3 hours to myself, which I'm spending a lot of that time doing these YouTube videos or time with the girlfriend. There is absolutely a structured part to YouTube. I learned that by posting weekly vlogs about what I did the past week. Strangers don't really care about what you did on a Tuesday. It averaged about 10 views per video. So there are things you have to do: good titles and thumbnails, storytelling structure, and give a reason that people keep watching. But also have some room to play, to mess around with the editing, try a joke, follow your interests, and make something and find out afterwards if it worked. I'm probably going to end up making technically competent videos about nothing interesting. And that's where Comfort Crisis comes in, and it connected with me on this project. A lot of modern life makes it incredibly easy to stay comfortable and constantly stimulated. And when every tiny little second or gap in your life gets filled with stimulation, your mind doesn't get much chance to go anywhere on its own. David Goggins wasn't wrong. I do need more structure in parts of my life. So the mistake was assuming that structure was useful and more structure must always be better. And I treated every empty hour like wasted time. Something needed to go there. So this past weekend, I intentionally left some of it empty. At first, yeah, uncomfortable, but my mind wandered and reconsidered my biggest goal, got an idea for this video, and I remembered that some of the most useful things I've found in my life, I started with having absolutely no idea what I was doing. So maybe wasting time isn't always a waste.